Hello there, girls and boys, and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum, the place where I show you all my tricks. I'll put them off live right in front of you. And today we're gonna be doing the final round of the details or the basic stuff that I wanna cover with you before starting the whole year comprised of mixes, allegedly. And today we're gonna be exploring something that after the last few days, after the last live stream that we had last week, there were some questions rising up regarding the concept of buses and parallel mixing, which I briefly covered last week, and it seems that it wasn't enough, so I want to dedicate a complete and full-on episode on it. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to an Estonian brave, and it's gotta be said from time to time beautiful to Germany. Say hello to girls and boys. Look at that! How Estonian, how brave,
Yes.
and sometimes beautiful.
Sometimes.
From time to time.
Maybe on the weekends.
Yeah, maybe.
Hello, girls and boys. How's it going? I'm glad you're back. Great to have you here as well. So, yeah, let's see what this extra episode on the basics of music, is it music production or mixing today.
This could be applied to both, because the whole thing with buses, I mostly use it for mixing bad. For example, my guitar rig, the wet dry wet, it's a parallel setup,
True.
and you can use it on live. So yeah, but most of the time it's gonna be used in a mixed environment. So with that being said, let's get into it. Welcome back to Logic Pro 11. In front of us with the project that has nothing going on it other than my voice and his voice, and we're gonna be using this project to do the whole shebang. I decided to go full on empty because I wanted to show you the whole process in a way that could cover some of the basics as well of adding instruments to a session. Okay, so let's begin. First, I'm gonna create a drum track just using drummer, regular drummer, nothing special. And since I've been working with a punk band for the last few days, punk is the one that is selected. So we're gonna go for something a little bit different. Let's go for psychedelic rock because it's better. And we're gonna create it. Okay, so this guy already created a drum pattern. Let's take a listen to, just to make sure that it's not awful. Okay, it sounds a little bit more reggae than psychedelic rock, but wherever. So, let's begin. You can see one thing. Just by good practices, I always recommend you to have at least a bar before the song begins, an empty bar. Why? Because in case you need to do this. We added an introduction. Look at this. If you were to begin here, you won't be able to do it, and you can see that the drummer region changed because it's no longer following the bars. Okay, that's why. But I want to keep it just cause we already have it. But just make sure that it did it correctly because we messed it up. Yeah, it got all messed up. Let's fix it. We're gonna start from the beginning of the bar, and now let's add a little bit more. There is. Now we got an introduction. Okay. Now, I'm gonna take you over here to the mixing area, mixing environment, or the mixer itself. And you can see that we got already this channel loaded with all sorts of shenanigans that I didn't ask for. For example, it comes loaded with an EQ. It comes loaded, and pro tip as well, if you go here and so click on this guy, now every plugin that you open is gonna just replace this guy. It also has this delay, kind of tape delay by the looks of it. Then we got this tape delay. Okay, it was the modulator, tape delay, and chroma glow, which is a fantastic overdrive. Sound many things, but it's kind of distortion. I'm gonna leave them there because we're not going to be messing around with them. I'm gonna do the following. Let's create a synth, the first synth on this show. I'm gonna use a bus for this particular application, and I'm gonna create I'm gonna use bus 1. Ignore these guys for now. Bus 1, there is. And then I'm gonna make sure that my bus 1 outputs to my summing bus. Why? We're already working with routing and already explaining the whole concept behind routing and buses. Let me explain. What do I mean by that? As you can tell here, my channel, the Manchester channel, which is the drums. I'm going to change it to drums just to be easier on the eyes, like Sydney Sweeney. And yeah, thinking about her. Drums, we're going to be quite easy for us to spot it, but this is what's going on. Imagine that every channel strip is following this order. You got the input channel, or the input of the, it's not the input channel, well, it could be a channel, let me explain. It's first the input. In this case, we're using Drum Kit Designer, which is the sampler, the audio engine that it's created the sound. It's basically a virtual instrument. I'm gonna show you this. Over here, we got my microphone. As you can see, this is my voice coming through. I'm gonna name it Adam, and this is Thiago. Yours truly. With meal spelling and everything. And you can see that different from the input of the drum kit, in this case we got the channel, the input, the number of the channel in my interface that I'm connecting my microphone to. And in this case I'm using input 1. Thiago's microphone, can you say hello to the girls and the boys?
Hello, girls and boys.
Yeah, but showing the...
Hello, girls and boys, in a way that you can see it.
Okay, perfect, thank you. You can see that his microphone is connected to input number 2. But both of them are being outputted to output 25 and 26. Those are the ones that are sending our voices to the software that allows for this broadcast to take place. What's the difference here then? You got here the drums being sent directly to the summing bus, which is this guy over here. This guy over here. This means that the output of this guy is coming through the input of my bus here. And this guy is the one that is feeding out, as you can see here, the stereo output of my session, which is what we can hear over here in the studio. But through the use of a send, which is this guy over here, outputting to 25 and 26, which if you might remember, are the ones that are being feeding the input of the software that is enabling this broadcast to take place. You can see where this is going. There, could you get it?
Yes.
Can you explain it ultra fast and simple?
Okay, well, everything you said, basically, okay, so in very layman terms, the input is where the sound is coming from, and the output is where the sound is going to.
Yes.
The send is another place where the sound is going to.
Yes.
But it's basically a parallel routing. It's a parallel route that the sound takes.
Why would you use such a term? Because both signals are going, following their own path, but continuously and following each other. Okay, it's the same, but going in both ways at the same time. Robbie, great to have you here.
Hey, Robbie. Good evening.
This is the thing, super important. Can I show them logic?
Yes.
Okay. You can tell that we got this send over here, this particular knob. This is controlling the amount of information being sent to that particular bus. In this case, the output of my the sound that is being fed to the software, the streaming software. Okay. By doing this, if I lower it down, I'm gonna just have this section of the drums going back and forth, and see what happens as soon as I start to knock down the volume of this synth. As you can imagine, that knob is controlling the amount of information being sent to the software, the streaming software. Okay? Now it makes sense? No. See what's happened, what's about to happen. Right now we're dealing with the summing channel, okay? If I press play right now and I knock down the volume here, the fader here, see what happens. What happened? You know what happened. Of course, we lost the sound. But why did that happen? The reason why that happened is because we are using a particular programming feature of a synth. In this case, we are using this fader as post fader, this synth. What does that mean? And we spent a good chunk of time trying to explain this, but I'm gonna use some examples actual practical examples in this session so I can show you the uses for each. You got right now post fader, which means that this synth is gonna be reflective of the positioning of our fader. If I push it, I'm gonna push more, and it's gonna be exactly the same amount. But here's the deal: you can see that what's the point of of this knob if the fader is still present. Okay, imagine that you are connecting this your iPod back in the day to the to your stereo, your stereo in your car. Okay, if you have low the volume of your iPod too low, you will have to crank up the output, the controller, the volume controller of your car, of your stereo, right, in your car. Try to compensate. But what will happen if your girlfriend shows up and it's Taylor Swift? Okay, so she decides to crank up the volume and annoy everybody in the world by doing so. What will happen is this: your volume is already cranked up in your car because you were already trying to compensate for the loss of volume. She shows up, cranks up the volume, and blasts Taylor Swift to her heart content. And what happens? Bam! You're gonna overload the input of your car, of your stereo car. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And what will happen? You're gonna get close to the point on which the speakers on your car are gonna develop distortion. You might blow up your ears, but you already did that by just simply blasting Taylor Swift. So it's not that it's much of a loss. And Swift is just a joke, allegedly. But in this case, we're having something similar. So if I crank up this guy, which I want because that could ruin the mix in your end, it will still be behaving in the basis of this guy, but this of the fader. But this knob is gonna be doing what I just explained to you. This could be the iPod volume, and this could be your stereo volume. This could be the best right now, but see how much I am cutting out of the potential volume that my signal has on its fader. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And please, all of you watching, let me know if that made sense, because this is actually something that from here onwards I'm gonna assume you understood. Okay, good. Enough kindergarten level. Let's get into the Swifty stuff. Here we go. First, I said there are many ways to program these guys. Right now we got post fader. I'm gonna do pre fader just as an example, and we're gonna be doing the same experiment. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna talk down the volume of my synth. See what happens. Nothing happened, right? On your end. On your end. Over here, we lost the sound of the drums. Why? Because when you do this, the pre-fader mode, the signal that comes into the input is gonna be sent straight to wherever that routing is taking place, bypassing entirely the positioning of the fader. Okay? And now the whole control over the output is now based on the control here on the synth. You see the potential? Probably not. No problem. That's why we are here for. But I want you to understand that the principle, how both work and interact with each other. Okay? Now, when would you use one or the other? Let's begin. I'm gonna hide my voice and his voice because it's kind of annoying. There is. And you see the gigantic
different animated.
Yeah, animated. Look at that. Yeah, fancy. It's gone. Wherever. Here we go. So, here we go. What are we gonna do first? I already created a synth to bus number 1. We got bus number 1 here, and the bus is sent over there. Okay, that's our input, which is taking us to auxiliary number 2. That's the name of that particular track. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna call it reverb. There it is. And let's load a plugin there. This is the first and most simplistic approach, but I think it's gonna be quite easy for you to understand when it comes to the uses of this synths. Let's insert a ridiculously, stupidly big sounding reverb. This is round, fan favorite of everybody, including the Pope. his favorite plugin. Did you know? So
I didn't, but it's good
but
to
now
know.
you know. Now you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So it does this. Right now I'm gonna press play, and the reverb is gonna be completely silent because the synth is what is gonna be feeding the channel on which this plugin is inserted. But one thing, when we work with this kind of setup, you gotta make 100% sure that the mix on your effect on the parallel bus is cranked up to 100. Gotta be all the way up. Why? You'll see what happens once a little bit further down the line. Now, let's begin. I'm gonna press play, and we're gonna start to push this guy little by little. Okay, I made it super obvious that we're applying this reverb to the sound. Now, right now we're working with post pan, which is basically just respecting the position of our panning knob, and the whole thing is operating as a post fader mode as well. Okay. So what will happen if I change the amount of the fader position? Check it out. The reverb is gone because we killed off the output of our drums. I'm gonna keep the position of the fader of the synth as it is right now, and I'm gonna switch to pre-fader. I'm just gonna press play and keep an eye on the fader. Okay. Could you see the difference, Thiago? If you didn't, you are deaf.
So we got no drums, and then we had just reverb.
Yes.
Yes.
Could you find a use for it? Could you? Could you?
Well, I suppose there are
Could you?
plenty.
Like, if there are that many, why don't you just share with us one
You're
of those?
already showing us one, because for the use of effects, you can send, for instance, now you have the entirety of the drums going through one stereo channel. But let's say you had drums as recorded as drums should be, independent microphones,
Honest to God.
honest to God, and you would have many drums channels, and you could send all of them to the same bus, and have the same reverb being affected in different amounts, because you could control those amounts with the sense.
I don't know what he said, but okay, no, look,
Yeah.
he's incorrect. I'm gonna do that later. But right now, this could be the intro to a song. Check this out. Huh?
I thought you were asking about
This?
this.
This? I don't know. Why would you come up with something as crazy as that? No, but only possible because we're working with the pre-fader mode. Let me redo it, but I'm going to explain to you what the hell happened. First, I'm going to put both to unity once again and see. This is the point on which we are going to be blurring the line between mixing and production. Okay? Why? Imagine the song begins like this. Let's even do it better. Let's add some more instruments to our mess.
Some Afro-Cuban.
Afro-Cuban could be good. I agree. Let me bring the Afro-Cuban. Here is. And I'm going to make sure that all of those channels that I just created are outputting correctly to the summing bus, which is, again, what is controlling the entirety of the mix on your end. Here we got the inspector. This is exclusive to Logic, but you got something similar on Luna, on Mixbus. All of those guys have something similar. I think Pro Tools does. It's been a while, but yeah. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna click on it, and the output should be not the output. Output, one thing. When you're dealing with in a DAW, output usually refers to the physical outputs of your system. Okay, your interface, and it's gonna just give you the amount of outputs that your system has to offer, no more, no less. Bus, on the contrary, gives you 40,000, almost. It's close to 40,000, yeah, because it's 258, not that bad. No, buses are internal routing, and they have a number, okay? In this case, Logic goes as far as 260 and 56 buses. In my life, I have never used any more than 30 buses,
It's already a lot.
which is already insane. I don't know why would you use this, but technology, I guess. Okay, we're gonna be selecting the one that we're using for the output, which is sum. And let's check on our alpha Q1. Okay, I'm gonna loop this guy. Pro tip: how to do this on Logic? If you go over here to this particular point, the very top corner, you see that the icon changes on your microphone, on your cursor. Click on it, hold it, and drag it. You're gonna duplicate. Okay, the same applies here. Let's do it. So let's begin. Kind of a mess. Right now, we're just gonna be assembling something just for sake of conversation. Let's pretend that this is kind of musical. Let's do the whole thing again. I'm gonna arrange these things like this. Let's say that we're gonna be rocking 2 bars of the drums, but just the effect. So I think I'm gonna be having it like, let's see. Okay. I'm gonna do it like this. Check this out. We're gonna do the whole trick with the drums being all the way dug down, just the reverb, and I'm gonna be automating. Again, this is just for conversation purposes, but you'll see what I mean with this. Look, I'm gonna set the volume of my fader all the way down, and I'm gonna also show you the mixer as well over here, so both of us have access to the same. I turn on automation mode? No, not yet. I just, by pressing letter A on my keyboard, I made the automation, wherever automation is done on the project, to become visible to me. So I'm gonna select my track, and I'm gonna select the automation mode to be latch. I can do it here as well on my surface by pressing the touch, latch, right, and trim, and read buttons. Okay. But I'm gonna, it's the same, okay? And what it's gonna do is gonna automate the volume. My plan is to automate the volume of my drums while the song kicks in, to take advantage of the ambience. Here we go. Okay. Now it kind of sounds like an introduction to a track. Let's pretend that we like the automation and the introduction of the drums with the reverb in the way I did it. So I'm gonna select read. This means that every move that I do won't be replacing the moves that I already did. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say that we like it there, but I'm gonna loop this region, this section over here, so I can play around with the reverb, because right now I find it to be stupidly big. There are 2 ways to do it. We can either go here and modify the parameters on our plugin, or we can send less of our drums to the reverb. Which one would you like to try first?
Let's try first, just sending less.
Yes.
See what we got.
That was actually my first normal reaction. Totally not me moving your brain into that idea by hovering over the mouth. Mm-hmm. Here we go. I'm gonna dock it all the way down, and then the magic of this is that the only thing that is being automated is the fader, the volume of my drums. That sounds better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see from the beginning. Nice. I'm starting to like it. What I would do here, I would apply a little bit of pre-delay. Now this is full-on mixing territory. Not necessarily sound design territory. Pre-delay on the on any reverb is gonna give a set amount of milliseconds for the reverb to be fed in. No, sorry, it's gonna be fed. It's gonna be fed by the sound coming in, but it's gonna delay the amount, the sound coming out of the reverb circuit to a set amount of milliseconds to your taste, based on taste. Why would you do such a thing? If I push it to a sweet spot, what is going to happen is that we're going to create a much more natural sounding reverb. Because how reverb behaves in reality is you go inside of a cathedral, for example, you say something, and the reverb that you hear is the bouncing back effect of your voice coming back to you after it traveled all the way to the walls, and then it's bounced back from the walls and comes back to you. The reason why my voice in this particular room sounds the way it does on your end, which is kind of very dry, not dry but direct and controlled, is because you can see on the panels, on the walls, I have several things hanging. Those are not trophies of my fallen enemies. Those are actually panels that absorbs those sounds coming out of my voice, okay, or any given sound. In this case, the pre-delay is gonna allow us to kind of create a particular sound that could, if you wish, get you closer to a particular sound of a particular place, or you can go nuts and do something creative, which is what we're going to be doing here.
There's a question about that real quick.
Go ahead.
Because since the purpose of the delay is basically replicating space. Reverb is replicating space.
Yes.
When it comes to a big sounding reverb, you will be talking about usually a bigger space.
Mm-hmm.
So by rule, would you always apply a pre-delay in proportion to the size? Let's say if you're adding a very big sounding reverb, you would need more pre-delay for it to sound natural?
That's a great question. My answer is you shouldn't think like that when it comes to delay or reverb, sorry. Why? Because by design, a reverb is meant to replicate the sound of a particular space. Mm-hmm. But that's the most boring of applications. Mm-hmm. Why would you just stop there when you can actually add something larger than life? Get me?
Yeah.
Because the way I see reverb is an extra layer of dimension, but also not in the sense of it creating the sensation of a space. It has a particular emotional connotation to it. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Let's play around with this example. Right now, the drums, if I mute the reverb, it sounds drums. But if I bring the reverb in, it sounds big-ass drums.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
For real. Now, when it's applied to a voice, for example, a vocalist, it could be intimate when the voice is dry, or spacey and how can I put it, dreamlike, larger than life, if it has a particular tone in the reverb. Mm-hmm. Because you can create, just think in terms of how is usually the voice of God portrayed on TV. Hey.
Yeah.
Why? Because it gives you that majestic vibe. Okay, Rob is saying here, pre-delay on the reverb is the beginning of the first reflections. That's a technical term. Thank you, Robbie, but that's exactly what it does. I went a little bit more autistic in my explanation. Okay, so I'm gonna play around with this guy because one thing, as Rob is stating here, it can is the beginning of the first reflections. As soon as it hits the wall, you can do something super ridiculous. See what happens if we go 2,000 milliseconds. It's like the sound happens inside of a gigantic space, and it's gonna take 2,000 milliseconds. 2,000 milliseconds for it to come back. See.
Yeah.
Is it useful? Not in this case, but it's now behaving closer to a delay, rather than a reverb. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't know, a reverb is a delay. It's simply having a super fast set of repetitions that conveys the illusion of a reverb. And it's not me. That's how they are made.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Okay. Now, Let's duck it down. Let's back it off and get something a little bit less terrible. A rule of thumb, it's for a natural sounding reverb. You should usually start at 30 milliseconds and hover sometimes over 80. Let's begin there. Is it setting? There is math behind it. I don't remember the math, but there is actual math behind it. It sounds way better, right?
Yeah, it does feel more
It
natural.
actually feels natural.
Yeah.
If we make it super fast, as it was at the beginning, it becomes, rather than creating this sensation of space, it will feel that
Feels
affecting.
Yeah.
Let me elaborate more. I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna say it once again to 20 something. It was like 28, whatever. Tell me if it doesn't make you feel that you're walking down the street and you're getting closer to wherever somebody's playing the drums. What do you think?
Yeah, no, actually that way, it's a good way to look at it. It feels like you're getting closer to the source, yeah.
That's sound design, man.
Mm-hmm.
That could be something, that could be the introduction to a section of a song or the introduction to a song. Cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens, what kind of sensation or what kind of impression it gets in your head. Words are hard. You get me? If I duck it down and I make the reverb sound immediate. What do you think?
Again, it feels less natural. It feels more like an effect rather than
Yes.
something a little bit more organic as you getting closer to a drum kit, for instance, as it's being played.
Exactly. So now you see what I'm trying to do with this, right? We just got two ways to use the same reverb using parallel mixing that have a completely different impact on the way a song could develop. If you are in a mixing scenario and you come up with this kind of trick, it could be a good way to blend in a song or to start off a song. Or it could be the ending. Imagine that you're doing the other way. The song is banging and then you start to duck down everything and just the reverb is there. Let's try it. Here we go. Let me take a look. Here we go. I'm gonna just extend the length of my drum region here. There it is. And we're gonna probably take it all the way down to this bar. Now, you know what? I'm gonna do it super 80s. All the way down there. Even more. Because why not? Okay? And then I'm gonna send my guitar to the bus as well. And let's send it equally. Pre-fader, and we're gonna send a copious amount. Why? Obviously. And we're gonna send it like that, okay? Let's play around with this. I'm gonna automate both instruments again. Let me make sure that I have drums ready to be automated. Thank you very much. Latch, guitar. Well, latch, there is. Well, I'm gonna be using my surface here, but you could do both at the same time by just holding them and holding and dragging, okay? But since I'm fancy, I will use my board. Here we go. Okay, it was extremely rough, but it's just to showcase the point.
Someone mentioned the 80s, didn't it?
Yeah, it's 80 sounding, right? Okay, See what happens, and let me take a look at here. Robbie's saying that he likes to use 20 to 30 pre-delay for lateral spacing on the reverb, 100%. Yeah, and you saw, when we were effing around with it, we actually got that kind of vibe. It became more natural. Now, look at this. See what happens with this with me docking down the volume of both instruments. That could be the moment in which, for example, during that where the whole reverb is the reverb is the only one that is audible. It could be a great moment for a song to have a properly spoken word or some sound effects. In the live show, could be a point in which you're getting prepared for the badass guitar solo to begin. You see where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. This is the point in which creativity becomes the norm and starts to be the actual prime directive. So let me continue. That could be the use for parallel mixing when applying reverb. Now, let's say that you want to do something funky. We've been working so far with reverb, but you can do something else. Let's say that you want to apply a different effect. I'm going to turn off the reverb because I'm very lazy. I'm going to apply something different, a modulation effect. And let's play around with, obviously, where is it? Where's my micro pitch? Mm-hmm. Here is the harmonizer. Ba-da-bam! Badass. I'm going to mute the guitars just for us to have a good and easier idea of what kind of effect this thing is going to do. On drums. First, Diego, do you know what a micropitch does? You happen to be some sort of scientist yourself, right?
Now, the micropitch, from my understanding, basically it creates copies of the signal. Mm-hmm. It duplicates it a few times.
Yes.
And it takes it out of tune.
Yes.
Slightly, in a way that enriches the sound.
Embiggens, you might
say embiggen, yes,
yeah,
and you will be correct.
Yeah, actually, because
it's not a dictionary, isn't it?
It is now it's part of the dictionary. Wherever. Look, micropitch. We're rocking the H949 plugin by the fine people at Eventide, totally not sponsored by huge fanboy. And this plugin is just badass. It's actually very, very good, and it kind of does the micropitch trick as close as possible, or as close as a plugin can do. I'm going to be playing this bad boy using the same synth that I'm using on my drums, just for you to see that you can even do something crazy like this. As it is, out of the factory, and we're gonna make sure the mix is all the way to the top. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Could you tell the difference?
It feels slightly fatter.
It's super subtle.
Yeah.
Super subtle, yeah. But it's fatter sounding. Mm-hmm. Because it's just creating this kind of extra layer of harmonics to the sound of the whole kit, and it's creating this fatter sound. Would I use it on the entirety of the kit? No. I would use it maybe on overheads, but where I would definitely use it is on the snare. Let's do it. I'm gonna remove this guy. No plugin, thank you. I'm gonna bring back the reverb and let's confirm that it's working. Clearly working. But we're gonna do this. I wanna apply that effect, or I wanna have control over the snare sound by my own, not as I'm working with it right now, which is a stereo sum. If only there was a way to create a multi-output instrument. Oh, there is one. Let me show you. We got here Drum Kit Designer, which is the input, is the name of the plugin we're using. And if you don't know what that means, look at this. There is Drum Kit Designer. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Actually, it's not that ugly. No, it is kind of dated.
Yeah.
It's kind of dated. Because that harkens back to Logic 9. That graphic,
Okay.
if I recall correctly. But what matters is sound. I'm gonna hover over here, and instead of using stereo, I'm gonna just select multi-output. And if everything goes according to the plan, nothing changed. Exactly. I'm gonna click over here, and now we got this new addition. Look, there's a plus sign over there. If you click on it, we are now creating extra channels, and each of them are aptly named: kick, snare, toms, hi-hats. And this guy that is drums is now overheads. Why? Because that's what happens. There it is. And now if I solo, let's say the kick, we got the kick alone. So good. Now I'm gonna select this section so we can play around with it, because if I go here, the automation is gonna still be present. And what is going to happen is that everything we do is we will have to wait until the whole automation is where we can have actually the sound of the drums as the major player here. So I'm going to go here because it's the point on which the whole thing is stable. Okay, so we won't be using right now the synth, but not the synth, the automation. But one thing, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 more channels here, but you don't have them here. Annoying, right? If you select, hold Shift, and click on the extra channels you want, and then Control T, bam! Now they're part of the arrangement. Very cool. And they will behave the same way. Just they will be empty because this is a MIDI region, and MIDI is controlled by this particular MIDI section. Because drummer, believe it or not, even though you might be familiar with this, in reality is this.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay, so let's do it. I'm gonna be doing the same thing with the synth, but this time around I'm gonna be using a different effect. I'm gonna be using the micro pitch. I'm gonna create a new bus, and we're gonna be using bus number 2 because why not? We're gonna make sure that we're outputting correctly to our summing bus. Very, very important. There it is. Thank you very much. And from here we're gonna insert our harmonizer. Bam. Let's see. I'm gonna press play, but I'm gonna solo the snare just for a while so we can actually see the effect of this guy on the snare. And we're gonna be right now rocking the post fader. And I will be controlling the amount of a harmonizer by sending this guy over here. I won't bother with this. Maybe. Here we go. Could you hear the difference?
Yeah, it was even more noticeable this time around.
Now I went a little bit more berserk.
Yeah, yeah.
But could you hear it?
Yeah, yeah, and it's quite cool. Again, it's fattening the sounds, making it more interesting.
Yeah, simply that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna bring back the rest of the drums, and let's see how it feels like. So good, right?
Yep,
But there is something funky going on. My reverb is not coming through. You know why? Because the only section of my drum kit, or the only track on my drum kit that has the send to the reverb is yes.
Okay.
Not good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How to fix it? We will have to add the bass to the snare as well. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is this. Now our badass intro is no longer working.
Oh yes, because the automation is only on that channel.
How could we do this? How could we fix it? First, let's go back to the automation mode, and I'm gonna simply delete everything because it sucked. And then you would be like, and that doesn't solve the problem. Of course not, I'm not finished. So what we're gonna do now is this.
You're being angry by proxy.
Just by proxy. We got two options. We can do it by creating a synth to each of our channels and automating them, all of them in tandem, in coordination, so they feed in or fed correctly the reverb to the point on which we had the badass intro at the beginning. Try that with a mouse.
Yeah.
Not sounding
Yeah.
logical, right? So, how can we do it? What if only we could just have all of the drums on independent faders controlled by one fader, like if we could be able to output them through one fader, which could be outputting to the... We're creating our boss. Here we go. How to do it easy. We're gonna select the all of my drums. I'm gonna click on the output, and rather, instead of selecting the sum that we're using right now, we're gonna create another one. And there it is, over here. That's one way to do it. That's the way that could be done on any other form of digital audio orchestration. Wanna go full on Logic, you can do it like this. You select them all, right click, create track stack, and yes, summing, which is gonna create a bus. But it also doesn't stop there because look, that is beautiful. But it's basically a bus, okay? And you can even see that it even selected bus 3 as the output. And bus 3 is still somewhere. No, it's simply muted, okay?
Okay.
But it's bus 3, okay? I'm just gonna make sure that the output of my new channel is outputting through bus number sum. And let's name them because it's a mess, starting to get messy. Aux number 7, it's now micro pitch, MP. Then aux 8 is gonna be drums. Again. And now my drum bus controls probably the bass. Obviously it's controlling the drums. But this means one thing. Let's first play around with the different instruments that are part of the drum bus. Let's apply a little bit of the snare. Let's apply a different reverb to the snare. I'm gonna do it like this. I'm gonna select bus number 4. I'm gonna remove this guy because he's the main, so I don't want that. That sucked. That guy is number 4. Perfect. This guy is gonna be S verb. Not to be confused with regular verb. This is the snare verb. And we're gonna insert another reverb. Let's try something ridiculous as well. Super plate, because why not? Totally unnecessary. There is. And again, triple check, all the way wet. And I'm gonna be using this synth here to taste. You can see that I'm sticking to the post fader mode. Why would that be useful? Let's say that we like the snare and the relationship between the reverb. As it is right now, a ladle is working, it's bothering me quite a lot because it has plenty of low end, so I'm gonna cut it. Yeah, autism kicking in. But, okay, I like it that way. But, the snare is way too loud. Allegedly, in this case, the snare, okay? And you are like, dude, I truly need to lower the sound of the snare, but if I lower it and I have my synth pre-fader, it will change the dynamics between the snare and the reverb, right?
Yep.
I don't want that to happen. Oh, you should have done it with post-fader. That way the reverb the relationship between reverb and snare, dry sound, is gonna be the same regardless of the position of the fader, because it's gonna be, if I lower this, the send is gonna be lowered in a chord, so it's gonna be the same relationship. Now you see why you would use one or the other in a mixing environment.
Yes. Yes.
Yes! Let's try it. I did it in a very exaggerated way, but you saw what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I would do something like this. Elegant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's do the badass intro again. We're gonna go all the way down to the beginning. We're gonna select that guy, our drum bus, which is a channel, basically speaking, and we're gonna turn the read mode on. But first, I'm gonna dock down the volume all the way to the bottom, so we can begin from there. Then read mode. No, I want latch, but I wanna do the send as well first. And I don't know if you remember, we got it like this. It's gonna be pre-fader, somewhere like this. And I'm gonna do the whole pretended thing from the beginning. Here we go. Now we got the intro again, with everything that came with it, plus control over all of the different elements of our drum kit. And it doesn't stop there. Since we're feeding the entirety of our drum kit to a bus, that means that we can apply plugins, effects, to the whole bus. No. Too late.
I went with the sound bite.
Okay, wherever. Okay, so, but I'm not aware of those. Wherever. Let's do that. I'm gonna insert, what could be the first thing to insert on a drum bus? Of course, compression. Let's do it. What compressor do we want to try?
Go with something funky.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Ropart. Bada bam! Later. Bada bam! You asked for funky, it's funky.
Funky indeed.
Okay, so let's play around with it. I went full on funky just cause. This is a very cool looking and badass sounding compressor, which has different ways for it to be controlled. One of them is actually mid-side, and I decided to go mid-side because I wanted to control a little bit more of the attack, to push more of the attack of my kick and snare, which are the center, the mono signals, and expand a little bit the width of the track by pushing a little bit the output of the sides. And I went a little bit overboard, so I'm gonna reduce it. Nice, right?
Yeah, pretty cool.
And that's been done to the entirety of the drum kit. Let's say that you want to apply a little bit of saturation to the drums because it's not a crime yet. Let's apply some distortion. Yeah, let's go for chroma glow because it's actually quite cool. I'm gonna use magnetic, yeah. That was good. The only bad thing about this plugin is the freaking interface, man. It looks meh.
Yeah.
But damn, it's good. And that's actually a built-in plugin. So good, right?
Yep.
So, does that make sense?
It does
Could
make
you
sense.
re-explain the entire process, how we used parallel stuff on the sides? Could you? Let's do one more thing before you ruin the day. Look, let's do something else. There is something that you might have heard before, which is known as a parallel compression. Parallel compression is a mythical, fantastical, crazy, intensely powerful technique. And I'm not joking. Let me load a bass line so we can actually create something a bit more musical, because this is just drums. It's not bad, but it could be better. So let me see, electric bass.
That's awful.
Okay, that one kinda totally doesn't sound like Led Zeppelin. Okay, let's kinda do a quick balance. This guy is not Black Alley, this is bass. And proper spelling. And let's put it underneath my drums, because that's where bass belongs. Now, let's push it a little bit louder because it's a little bit not correct. Okay. The bass, let's say that we want to reinforce the sound of the bass, but we don't wanna squash it too much by applying too much compression, right? The way to go would be this. How about if we squash the living stuff out of the bass, outside of the bass, and blend in just enough of that ultra squash signal for the bass to sound beefier. That's the whole principle behind parallel compression. Let's do it. How would you do it? There are two ways. You can go here, select a compressor. Let's say something like optical. No, let's say VCA, and use totally unnecessary compressor. Why pick this guy? Not only because I can control it with my board. No, it's because it has the mix knob here. So this would allow you to squash the signal and then blend it in, without having the need of creating the whole routing that is required for parallel compression. It's good, yeah. It's effective, yeah. But how about love? No, that was a Meatloaf reference. The only limitation with this is that you won't be able to use the same circuit to compress, let's say, the overheads or the snare, using the bass as well. So if you want to just focus on a particular instrument, like the bass in this case, this could be a solution. But I rather use the synth because I prefer to have the possibility of using the same circuit to compress many more things. So let's create the synth. We're gonna use bus number 5. This guy is gonna be pick amp. There it is. And this guy, we're gonna insert something super nasty. Let's try the badass distressor. Obviously, there is. Damn, it's big.
Yep.
But you know why? Because it's actually a rack. And look, it also has the dry thing. But let's go for nuke. Where is nuke? Let's look for aggressive. Yeah, 'cause we don't have time. Room boom, wherever that is. Here is, okay. And then I'm gonna be sending my base to this guy, to the base comp. Of course, making sure once again, look at that, we haven't stopped using buses in 30 of the time. And I'm gonna be sending this guy all the way here, little by little. Let's see what happens to the sound of the bass. Not bad, right?
Nope.
Let me mute it. With. And before you say, dude, it's just louder, of course it's gonna be a little bit louder because you are adding more of the same to the sum. Clearly, it's one of the things that you gotta be always paying attention to. I hope you realize that I actually dug down the output of my parallel compressor.
Yep.
Because as of course I was expecting the increment in volume that comes with this, but you could see that the points on which the notes of the bass weren't as loud, where they have a little bit of a decay, a release, they were not audible anymore. They were audible, but they weren't palpable. They felt, if the bass felt way more solid.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it did.
That happens because we're squashing it and we're bringing in. And you saw that the technique, can you show them like? I pushed the input all the way to the top, regardless. And I would even crank up the tag and push the release even more, so make it much more compressed. And I will even change the ratio to nuke. It says nuke. Let's see what it does. And Robbie, he says that there is actually another way to parallel compress. Simply duplicate the track and compress the crap out of it. Blend to taste. It's exactly the same thing. Exactly, because a bus is just making a duplicate. The thing is that I prefer just using buses rather than creating double tracks because well, the channel counts becomes kind of daunting. But it's totally legit. Let's try it out now with nuke. When I do this parallel thing, this is what I would do. I would set my my channel, the bass in this case, to post fader. Send the entirety of my sound 0, so gain unity gain, and I would use my fader to blend in the compressed signal. Let's see. Big difference, right?
Yeah.
Difference. And parallel compression, it's one of the most used tools ever because it creates a much more natural sounding compression than compression itself, if done correctly, if done to taste, and if it's done with care. Because you could hear that the notes were still present, the attack. There are points on which the bass should jump, and it jumps a little bit louder than the rest, but the vast majority of the take felt much more ballsier, concise, continuous. You get me. The groove is still present, but it's starting to glue up the entire thing. So that's parallel compression, and that, basically speaking, hopefully covers the basics of routing. Now, Thiago, your turn.
What is my turn?
You have 3 minutes to explain the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Yes, in simple terms.
Okay, what is the whole thing that you want me to explain?
Well, what is love?
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Yeah,
What else? Done.
I want to know what it is. No. The whole thing. How would you explain to somebody who doesn't know, someone as autistic as myself, how parallel mixing works?
Okay, so
Bosses and cents and everything. You got just the time it takes for me to finish my water.
Okay, so in short, you rather than applying whatever it is that you want to apply to the channel where to your original channel,
Yes.
you would send a duplicate of the sound to another channel where you can do whatever you can mangle your sound
Yes.
in that channel, so you don't f up what you have going on the first one.
Yes.
And then when it comes to the parallel mixing, you would be able to add whatever you mangled to taste. So you have both. You have the original sound preserved intact.
Yes.
And you have the mango sound, and you can blend them to your heart's content.
But one thing, you're correct, but I just realized this, and nobody stopped me. The super plate plugin, the one that I'm using on my snare, I left it. Nobody saw it. Nobody, and I was waiting. No, for real. This is actually done on purpose. Very important, because right now the only one who heard the effect of the snare and the reverb was us over here. Be super mindful. Why did I did it in purpose? And I'm not trying to cover my ass. I did it like that because this has happened to me, professionally speaking, before. You feel that you're doing everything correctly, but if you don't keep track of the routing inside of your project, a mistake like this could keep you chasing your tail for hours on end before you realize that there is something so dumb like this. For real. So please be quite careful with this. What you didn't hear is nothing special. You'll see. It's just the snare. It sounds like this. It's the reverb on snare. Just that. But please be careful, because that has happened to me, and it can happen to every single one of us. Okay, Thiago, now put an end to this misery. You were saying?
No, just when it comes to the whole thing with parallel mixing is allowing you to preserve the original sound and work on that on a duplicate of that sound on a different track, so you can mix to taste. So you showed a few uses. I imagine that creatively speaking, you can come up with another infinity of uses. But I think this is a good enough understanding on how to put it in place.
Could you see the difference now between pre and post fader? Its uses,
Yeah.
how they could be used in both production, because you asked at the beginning of this live stream if it was merely for production purposes or for mixing purposes. Most of the time, it's gonna be used while mixing. The majority of scenarios is usually gonna be there where you use it. But when producing music, just the trick along using the post fader, the pre fader thing, allowed for a cool introduction. And what I would do in that case, I would print. Let me show you. I would create a track of that particular reverb. Again, as I explained to you, Control T, creating a track. Now it's here, and I would record this guy. How? With, you guessed it, like this. I'm gonna create a new track. It's gonna be audio. Bam. I'm gonna send the send, because you can do that. First, I'm gonna select this channel to be the input, send number 6. Okay, and it's gonna be stereo track. Bam. Then I'm gonna send this bad boy over there to send number 6. Pow. And I'm gonna leave it. I don't care about this. Okay, the fader thing. So let's say that we want to record this. I would simply select this guy, set it to record. It's ready to. Is I'm ready. And that means that we got
There it is.
and that's how you even create your own samples. Huh?
Without meaning to open another can of worms,
Do it.
but there's another very recurrent use for this that we didn't mention here today.
Go ahead.
Well, for live and for recording, monitoring, which is probably the one that we actually use quite often. here,
And
at least on
every
my
single one of
end.
us, at least you.
Yeah.
Great question. When would you use a routing like that? Great point. Let's say that I want to send the entirety of the mess to an auxiliary track, which is going to be feeding the headphones for somebody recording, right? How to do it? First, let's call this guy FX. FX, there it is. Okay, and I'm gonna create a new bus. Where do you do it here, Theo? Create like that. Joking, there it is. Now, I'm gonna set this guy to be the input of my bus. I'm gonna use bus number 7. And I'm gonna select my summing bus, which is where everything is being fed to. I'm gonna output to summing bus to bus 7, which is monitor. Okay? And I'm gonna set it post or pre-fader. Which one would you use? Because in here first I gotta make sure that I'm outputting through, let's say, output number 3 and 4. Okay? And yes, this is it. Yeah, because this is the output to the software. Okay, so output 3 and 4. Okay. If I'm sending this guy as post fader, let's say that we want to lower the volume of the mix here in the mixing room, and whoever is on the other side in the live room, if we duck down this guy, this fader, the summing fader. Where is it? Here it is. If we lower the volume here, we're going to be affecting his monitors. In this case, I would strongly recommend you to always work with pre-fader and send it to Unity, and you will control the amount of information being sent to the mix on the headphones of the guy through the fader on your track. Make sense?
Makes sense, yes.
Very important and very, this is the most common use outside of mixing. So you can see that buses are used during the recording, during the production, and during the mixing process.
Or live on
stage. So all you need is not fuzz, it's bus. So
on this note,
I hope now some of those mysteries are covered. I hope you got what I'm trying to show you with this one. I think, all in all, it wasn't that bad.
I think it was quite comprehensive.
Because this is the kind of stuff that it's a little bit confusing, or at least it was very confusing to me at the beginning, because I started to understand this in the mixing environment, but then I had to move over the live environment, and some of the principles applies. But all of the principles applies, but there is a completely different approach to them. And then I came back to mixing, and then I started to see stuff that could be involved in live, for example, television, outputting stuff. So you need to start to create different mixes, one for the control room, one for the monitors on the stage, one for the feed that is being fed to the broadcasting devices, one for the radio. You start to have many different mixes, and all of them require different levels. That's when buses becomes, it's your saving grace. And here at the studio, well, you saw just that thing with the bus at the end, the output to the monitors. Oof. You can even select the amount of instruments you want to send. If you don't want to send to the guy on headphones the entirety of the mix, you can apply these buses on an independent basis, instrument by instrument, allowing you to control the amount of bass, for example, how loud the click is hitting the eardrums of the guy, of your victim in the recording room, so on and so forth, based on wherever the guy is asking for. And since they are usually drummers, they don't know what they're asking for, so just blast them. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. I covered just the basics, but with these basics, you would be able to pull off basically everything that can. You will be able to develop solutions to every freaking problem you might face in the studio or live. So, if you like to support this kind of content, the best way to do it is by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify, and also by following us on social media such as Instagram and X. And the only thing left to be said is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that we will see you when we see you.